Gmamo, lazy morning. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, okay.
Jimamo,
Sorry,
lazy
man.
morning, guys. It's a
Yeah, man.
pleasure to be here with you guys. Especially, yeah, excited. I think this is gonna be a good Mamosloth space.
Me too. What? Well, so which is it? Is it Gmamo or is it lazy morning, or is
Man,
it both?
for me, it's more lazy morning today. But I guess Paco's gonna have a different opinion, you know.
I think we embrace the yin yang. You know, that's why the sloths and mammals go so well together. It can be both.
hmm Oh, very cool. Yeah. Well, that was a good way to kick things off because what we're going to talk about today is just mammos, the sloths, the mamosloths, and everything in between. I think one of the themes to me is how NFTs are really identity and community building um, tools, and it's been really amazing to see the emergence of the Celestian sloth community, and now more recently the mammoth community emerge around Celestia and the modular ecosystem. And we have two of the leaders of each respective clan on Sasha, who's an OG in crypto, been around for a long time. I would say also probably like the one of the number one NFT connoisseurs and community builders that I know. And likewise, Paco is sort of a community NFT savant in his own right, who did a successful CTO of the Sloth, um, Celestian Sloth project, and has been leading it to great success. Even planning to launch Lazy Chain soon, which is its own kind of like meme chain for the Sloth community. So lots to unpack here. I guess to start off with, I want maybe each of you can just give like a quick summary of the lore of each of these collections, and not just maybe the history of how they came about, but also and how they got to where they are today, but also like what is the cultural significance or the values or the like what does it mean to be a sloth, what does it mean to be a mammoth, what do these things represent to you, and I guess like what do you think they mean in the broader like modular Celestia and crypto ecosystem?
I'll let Paco go first.
Nice, nice. Okay, so honestly, okay, I'm gonna say like something like a little bit like not necessarily like controversial, but how I think like what's the state of like entities, like why I think they can be valuable. It was basically like so. Okay, imagine like there are several ways of like flexing stuff nowadays. You could like go and like buy like a luxury item, like I don't know, like an expensive watch, like a Rolex or something like that. Like that's very cool for some people, but it's like I feel like with NFTs you get that layer and like way more because with a cool NFT you're gonna get access to like, well, you're gonna be able to like flex, and you also get like an extra layer of access that you do not get with any like luxury items, which is like you get access to like a community, right? And you get access to like a lot of stuff in like the modular ecosystem. I think that's what like slots are. I view slots as like like easy access to like the modular ecosystem. I feel like founders recognize slots like pretty well. I'm actually like as Nick said, like I'm not the founder. I just did like a successful like CTO. I'm just another like core contributor for the community. And I mean, one really cool thing is that when I traveled to like Modular Summit, I could really see how people were like so excited about slots. I was like, wow. I thought like working for like an NFT project was bad, but it's like, dude, like everyone was like, dude, you're from the slots, like that's so cool. Uh, and I think that's kind of like what they represent, like being early to like the modular ecosystem, like having access, like like being an OG, and like just getting into things that other people like cannot get. I think, in my opinion, like that's very very meaningful because you can see it with slots. Like we've been early to like most ecosystems in modular, and I think for some people that has been like financially like very very good. and like great communities have formed around slots as well. And yeah, like I mean, you really see these people like thrive, and like I think people are like now like pretty attached to their slots. Like I'm pretty attached to my sloth. I would never be able to sell it now. I have to like die with it, and yeah, it's just something that is, I think, very very beautiful to see. And honestly, I think our lore is also like pretty good, because it's like I think our community is pretty organic. I got to the community, by like actually like it was Nick who DM'd me, and then I met Saki in person on an event that Nick invited me to, and I mean, we sort of like took it from there, and then we started like working on this. Then like we did the CTO. I think that was a tough moment for all of us, but I mean, like I think it did make the community like way stronger, and yeah, like just it's pretty. I think it's really crazy to see what we've accomplished in like less than a year, because slots are not even like 1 year old. So yeah, looking forward to like what we can do like this year, and like what's coming with mammoths as well. So I'm gonna leave it to Sasha, because I'm sure he's gonna say good stuff.
Yeah, no, that was pretty comprehensive and inspiring. Yeah, I don't like it's a multifaceted question. I think like the first part is okay, why NFTs? I'll try and answer that, and the second part, like why mammoths? So like I think I'm pretty aligned with how, I don't know if people on CT probably know Punk 6529, but he ran a poll I think a few months back, basically saying that if you had to hold one thing, one token for 20, 30 years, what would you hold? And the outputs of that poll were very interesting. They're essentially like split between Bitcoin and like Grail NFTs, right? And I think that gets to something pretty key, I think, right? If you're really in it for the long term, there is this sense of emotional attachment and cultural relevance to certain NFTs that cannot be displaced. Like no matter what technological advancements come, no matter where value ends up accruing, there's this sense where like this, moment in time where this community gathered around this iconic NFT is culturally relevant forever. So the sort of the other side here is like there's very few of these, right? Like you can a lot of people have lost a lot of money on NFTs by sort of buying the wrong things, and 99% of them are probably not going to be culturally relevant. So you kind of have to have like a pulse on that. As with respect to mammoths, like I think it's interesting to me on multiple dimensions. I think there's clearly the symbolism of Celestia, right? The sort of the mammoth block. Same as sloths, right? Has that symbolism, lazy ledger. That's something that's extremely powerful. So like if you think that Celestia is going to be relevant for a long time, this sort of sense of symbolism that's like very close to what the protocol means to early adopters is extremely important. I think the second thing I love is symbolic animals, right? This applies to sloths and mammals. There's something very powerful with animals and symbolism, right? You see that in kind of the early cave paintings. You see that even in fashion, right? You see that with Lacoste, for example, that sort of crocodile logo that makes you want to buy that shirt, that you wouldn't feel that emotional appeal if it didn't have it, right? Even if you don't understand what it stands for, right? And why it's there. And sort of the third thing that really appeals to me about mammoths is the CCO nature. So I like this. For people who aren't familiar, CCO basically means it's public domain, right? Like you can steal my mammoth PFP and wear it, and there's nothing I can do. You can kind of print it on, I don't know, whatever you want. There's nothing I can do legally to sort of fight that. And I think that sort of gets to me, in a sense, takes me back to the roots of what crypto is, right? Why was I attracted to crypto, and why were a lot of sort of OGs attracted to crypto? It's this nature of like we're creating a system that does not lead to resort to the legal system to enforce certain rules, right? And there's this nature of permissionless, right? You can just do things. You can just take things, do things, mix things. And I think this has incredible potential in the NFT space, in the sense that you can take mammoths, for example, remix them with something else, make something really cool, and then actually that can kind of get people killed on mammoths that weren't aware of it before, and get them to sort of, some of them will end up buying the original. And so you have this kind of like this feedback loop that I think is extremely powerful, and broadening that, sort of even at a higher level. I think of Bitcoin as actually the first CCO brand, right? There's no marketing department, there's no uh, hierarchy organization that's in charge of the IP. No one owns it, and the logo, in a sense, was created by a randomer on Reddit. I mean, the thread is still up, who kind of just posted and said, this is here are some sort of SVG logos. Like, let me know if you guys like this. You can take the Bitcoin logo, you can put it anywhere, no one can stop you. So I think we're in this transition period from sort of a brand development perspective, where we're going from these kind of very coherent top-down driven brands to these sort of messier, chaotic brands that have narratives that kind of evolve and fight together in almost like survival of the fittest point of view. We've seen that at the base layer level. I think we're going to see that at the NFT level. I think we're just starting. And I think we're going to see sort of fascinating experiments around this. And that kind of motivates me to really like experiment on that level and help drive that path forward.
I love that. You guys are obviously both very deep thinkers. It was interesting that you mentioned how half the people would want to hold a Grail NFT. And yeah, I do think that like NFTs and art in general, like even, in real life art has been used as a store of value for generations. So it actually makes a lot of sense that we're kind of replicating some of the same things on chain. And I also love what you said about the CCO licensing. To me, that's kind of like we're very big in crypto about open source, right? Fully open source software, so anyone can remix and sort of like use what's built. It's in the public domain completely, and I think it sounds like CCO is sort of that, but for the artistic equivalent of like being fully open source. Um, and the idea of like these headless brands of like, I think a successful crypto project is one in which it's outgrown any need for like, yeah, like a centrally coordinated narrative or marketing machine, I guess. So I just deeply resonate with that. And there's also this interesting crossover, right, between NFT collections being associated with specific L1s, right, and sort of maybe the value, the community there. Um, so there's also like that, there's like Bitcoin is not just Bitcoin. There's also, I guess, the Taproot Wizards, or maybe there's the Quantum Cats, or what have you. And there's similar collections on Ethereum, right, with the punks,
Right.
or even the apes. And there is something interesting about the attraction of like animals mimetically, whether those are like meme coins, dog and cat meme coins, or they're apes or sloths or mammoths, all these like animal themed NFTs. Or does seem to like capture the mind in some way. And mammoths are actually one of the few things that in the cave paintings what were like represented, right? Which is kind of trippy. So it's like
Right.
one of the oldest forms
Yeah,
of
they're super
go ahead.
OG.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess like, so my next question to both of you would be like, what do you guys think that the sloths and the mammoths each represent? Like what do they symbolize? Because like we are, Ikram, who's the CMO at Celestia Labs, is always talking about like there's the logical brain, and then there's the emotional, like not rational, more creative brain, and I feel like that's symbols. Like symbols are ways of communicating ideas without words, right? And I feel like that's kind of what's happening with the sloths and the mammoths, is they symbolize something. They explain something about either Celestia or about the community non-verbally, but like it's kind of nice sometimes to try to put that into words and articulate it. So I'd be curious, like what your guys' opinions are as kind of leaders within these respective communities.
Yeah, I'll let Taco go first, but I think I spoke a lot recently, if he wants to.
Yeah, yeah, I can really like try to like kickstart it. I think that's actually like a great question, and because it's like no, I feel like mammoth slots and like well slots, mammoths, like especially like they all mean something like different to like everyone. But as you said, like when you see like slots and mammoths, like you do get like a pretty like clear idea. Like for example, like when I think of mammoths, like I automatically think of like big blocks, and when I think of like sloths, like I think it's very cool, and I think it has like a lot of like mimetic power because like I don't know, like it's sort of like this playful thing that like automatically like activates this part of like the left brain that is more like okay, like like they're lazy, like they also like remind me of like lazy ledger to an extent and like to like that specific part of the lore. But I think it's more of a and yeah, like I mean, like for me, like that I've personally like been in the community for a while. I don't know, like it really represents, like being early to something that like people like do not fully understand yet, especially like on the mainstream, because I do feel like Celestia is like a very misunderstood project. So I don't know, like for me, it's like it's a way of like telling myself like, hey, I can still like I can be early to this project. I can try to understand it like as best as I can, and yeah, like it's just like a matter of like getting like pretty much like that like closeness to the community like very early on, and like like seeing the project grow. Like that's what slots are to me. So yeah.
What do you think of the laziness aspect? What do you? I mean, to me, I feel like so. I mean, for the people listening, some of the lore of Celestia is that originally it was called Lazy Ledger, um, and I think the creator of the Celestian Sloth Society collection was is Ducky Manion, who is an advisor to Celestia, and he was always there was a lot of people who missed when we rebranded to Celestia. They were like, "Oh, I missed the Lazy Ledger, vibes." And so I think this was partly his effort to bring it back. But laziness is really like a core part of the actual story of Celestia and the design and the inspiration for how the protocol works. Um, so I don't know, like what do you think about laziness uh, in that regard with the sloth collection? Before we go to Sasha.
That's a great question. Also, like if I'm not mistaken, also like I think you guys wanted to call the token like sloth or lazy. Like I remember someone
Zucky,
told
that
me
was
that.
Zucky's idea. I don't know if anyone really wanted to do that.
Yeah. No, no, I know. I think that was Saki's idea. Like, I think he might have told me once, like, hey, yeah, I wanted to call the token like lazy. And it's almost like, okay, so I mean, like, you guys had to rebrand, but like the lazy idea, like, will always be there. But dude, I feel like the idea of laziness is actually like very, very powerful because I think on blockchains and in life, laziness is very correlated to progress. Like things like DoorDash would not exist if we were not like inherently lazy. Like if you want to like reduce it to like first principles, like dude, laziness is like a dude, it's like a great thing, because it's like it makes you push harder so that you can have like a more like comfortable life. Like, and I think that's something that Celestia is doing for blockchains, but it's very like misunderstood. And I think this idea of laziness for slots is more of a like a smart laziness. Like we're all like very fucking lazy, and like we like to have lazy Sunday, but it's like, dude, it's like I feel like it's about like that type of laziness. Like the type of laziness that makes you like go further in life. So
Hmm.
that's how I feel like laziness within the collection, because it's like even though we're very lazy, we all like I think everyone in the collection like like really wants to make it, really wants to see like Celestia succeed, and like we're all pushing like towards that goal, and I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, just on the technology point, I mean, what's someone had this way of articulating, which is like technology is all the things you can do without effort or having to think about it. Essentially, it's like, oh, I don't want to, I don't no longer have to walk. I can just drive or fly or um, Yeah, it's like or even biology. He says it's like the number of things that you can just push a button and have happen is sort of like how you can measure technological progress, in a sense. And obviously, pushing a button is very lazy compared to like I don't know if I needed milk, I'd have to like go out and like have my cow and like milk it versus just like I don't know pushing a button and having DoorDash deliver it, for example. So I agree with you, um, and that's a good way to put it. Sasha, what is to you? What is the symbolism of the mammoths? I feel like this could go very very deep.
No, try to keep it
No,
short,
go
but
deep, sir.
I mean,
You're great at this.
yeah, just wanted to say Paco's the ultimate sloth community member from his answer. I think that is a perfect answer. Yeah, on the mammoth front, I think, I mean, obviously, right, there's the big blocks, relevancy to sort of Celestia, right? You need mammoth blocks, um, separating building from verifiability, which appeals to me at like a aesthetic level, technological level. Is why that separation and how cleanly it was presented, thanks to sampling, is what made me fall in love with Celestia. Um, and obviously, the world class team working on it, like that, these two things put together, Mammoth being a sort of core symbolism there is really important. But I think at a different dimension, um, on a personal level, it resonates with me for like very different reasons, right? Like I burnt out very badly uh, not that long ago. I guess it's like a 4 year burnout, and it just like it got to a point where I needed to just take a break, and I took a couple of weeks off, which is not enough, but but it is enough to kind of start reflecting. And I was sort of I left my phone at home. I didn't really check. I wasn't connected to Twitter. I was really kind of detoxing technologically, and it got me thinking. What is it? What is sort of the state of mind that makes me happy? And thinking of my childhood, so on, and sort of all these influences we all have, in terms of like happy places and questions we have over like who we want to be and what is the state of mind that or the conditions we need to sort of be happy in. And I kind of distilled a set of principles based on that. Not really thinking about it, I just kind of wrote it down one day, which I sort of pinned to my profile page. Wrote it down very quickly. But it had to be okay. Like, what does being a mammoth mean? It's kind of the opposite of what leads to burnout. So it's okay. So it means being patient, right? Long-term games only. If it takes a decade or two to achieve success, then so be it. Persistence, right? We continue to move forward no matter how low the morale is, how terrible the conditions are. Um, Calm, whatever problems we are faced with, we know we can figure out a way to surmount them without like getting overly worked up or making a fuss or stressed about it. Community first, right? We are loyal and take care of our own, um, and strong and dependable, right? We are rock. We are the rock that others look towards when the going gets tough. So these are kind of all personal qualities that I'm to try to remind myself daily, to counteract the sort of the fast-paced nature, burnout tendencies of crypto. Obviously, I'm not perfect at it. I work in crypto. I'm constantly plugged in. I'm constantly on Twitter, but I do kind of try and go for walks without my phone, sign off at certain times, and remind myself of these sort of principles. So there's these two dimensions, right? There's a personal dimension that might not be shared by everyone. There's kind of like the really, for me, means like becoming a mammoth. What does becoming a mammoth mean? Like, how does one visualize himself as a mammoth and act like a mammoth? And then there's kind of the sort of the Celestia symbolism connotation, which I'm in love with.
Sounds like you got that mammoth in you. Um, yeah, I think I really like. So there's a post that I just shared to the space, which kind of like summarizes that. And I remember when I saw when you posted that, I was just like, wow. No one had really articulated it that way, but it's like it's so true. And I think these values of a mammoth are sorely lacking in today's crypto ecosystem. Like especially, I mean, patience and persistence. I feel like our space is just dominated and totally distracted by short-term games, and forgetting that we were all here for like a multi-decade, like long technology paradigm shift. And it's not about just like, oh, what's your P&L over the last week or 24 hours or whatever. Everyone's just so caught up in the short-term stuff. Also, and that's not just like community members and traders, but even I would say a lot of founders and teams too get distracted, right? And I think that's actually one
Yeah.
of the reasons why crypto fails to deliver. After these teams raise a bunch of money and then they get complacent, and then when you have a token too, it's sort of like being a public company where public companies often feel pressure to like appease the shareholders in the short term, and so it kind of leads to this like short term mentality, and then also like you said, we're terminally online, and if you're always on X, you're always on Telegram or Discord, getting pinged at every hour of the day, and everything moves so fast, you kind of turn into a zombie, and I think that being, visioning yourself as a mammoth of like, okay, hey, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. We're in this for the long term. I'm in this to create like lasting value and like real like powerful societal and technological change. All of a sudden, it's a very calming space to inhabit, like mentally, which
Yeah.
is very refreshing. I really agree.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think you nailed it. Like, there's what's that saying? Like, you're the average of the three people you spend the most time around, right? But when you're terminally online, you're the average of kind of crypto Twitter, right? It's like
Yeah.
you become that, and so like you do need to like take a real, I think, strong stance to make the opposite a part of your identity, right? So for me, it's like the PFP, the sort of the pinned tweet, the constantly like memeing it, thinking of it. Um, uh, I think you need to almost like go very extreme actually to kind of get centered again. But that's it. My personal, not advice. Don't advise everyone to try and become a mammoth. It's just my personal story.
Yeah. Well, that was great. So the next question I want to get into with you guys is, what do you think? There's been a lot of NFT collections over the years, right? Ever since I would say punks sort of really kicked everything off, of the specifically the PFP NFT meta. And the thing is, there's a lot of, just like in the token markets for crypto, there's a lot of cyclicality, right? um, Not just to the NFT market itself, but even like the different like collections that have their moment in the sun and the spotlight, and then kind of fade back into irrelevance, right? And so I guess I'm thinking about things something like Moonbirds or even Bored Apes, or I don't know. There's probably almost too many to list. But then there are some of the collections that do seem to stand the test of times, like Punk's definitely being one of them. Maybe Milady's, obviously Pengu's. We have Andy here actually, who's an imposter with wearing his pudgy. And if you want to come up and chat, feel free to. But yeah, I mean, I'm just curious, like, why do some NFT collections, blow up and fail, and then why do some get big and stay big? And who like what? How do you see like the mammoths and sloths sort of like taking lessons from that going forward?
I have lots of thoughts, but I'll let Paco go first. I think if he wants to.
Yeah, I think I can go first. I think it relates a lot to my first point, which is like I think NFTs are just like, if done well, they're like better luxury items, like luxury items with like a social layer. And I think just cultivating that social layer can like be very powerful. I think there's I mean, I think there's for sure like a certain element of luck, because like with some collections, it's like, I mean, like, yeah, like you view them as successful, but like maybe like they were not initially successful. Like Milady, like it took them like months to like mint, and now I think like, I mean, like I completely agree with you. Like there are like people that I really look up to, and like like I think do like a phenomenal job, especially like on mimetics. And I think since they're also like CC0, like it's very like correlated to what Sasha said. Like everyone can take like their IP, like penguins are, for example, like taking like a completely different approach where like like they own the IP, and like each holder like owns the IP, and like so it's like it's like I think it's like super interesting because it's one of these things where it's like there's no clear like playbook for success. Like there are some collections that are based on like like airdrop hunting. Like I'm personally like not super bullish on that, but like that's also like another thing that people like do. So like I think the beauty of like NFTs and like crypto right now is that there is no clear way of like being successful. I think as Nick, as you said, like all this model of like, hey, we raise like VC money and then we launch at like like high FDV, low float. Like it's like it just like doesn't work well. So like, and I think the same thing is happening for NFTs. We're sort of like trying to figure out like, okay, this is the way to like that NFTs like should work, and like like we're in the arena, like like trying like new things. But I would say like there's not like besides community and besides like that social layer, I don't think I think it's very hard to pinpoint like one thing that is like, okay, this is what makes NFTs valuable, because everyone has taken like such different approaches that it's like it's hard to see. But one thing that I'm very excited about with mammoths and sloths, like Mamosloths, is that like we're really like out there like trying new things and like like trying to figure out ways to like like make these things like actually like valuable like long term, and like create like a strong reason to hold them, both like financial and like non-financial. And I don't know, I think that's really like fascinating to see, like seeing this interplay of like multiple factors, and like so into converging into like, okay, should I hold this NFT or not? And like just knowing that like I think no one really has like figured this out yet. And I don't know, it seems like an interesting like problem to solve. And yeah, but it's to me like it's really like it's just nice to see like how each collection is different in its own right, and like we're all trying to like like create reasons for people to like hold on to these, and like yeah. So I don't know, like that's interesting to me.
I think you had a really good take. Before we go to Sasha, how do you think of like lazy chain playing into that? Because I mean, I do feel like that is something unique. I mean, I guess like the Pudgy Penguins, have sort of launched their own chain of like abstract. I guess Chain you could think of started as an NFT collection that turned into its own chain. But like, how do you think about the lazy chain as one of those features that helps to add value to the overall collection and community?
Yeah. So okay. So one thing that why I was saying that like I feel like no one has really like figured it out with NFTs is that so usually like what happens now is that people are like, okay, we're gonna launch a token for the NFT, like it gets super hyped. You see like this weird like virtual IFA pattern, and then like like everything crashes, and like the NFTs goes to like 40 ETH, and then like the next day there are like 3 ETH. Like many collections have done this, and I think this type of like price action is just like not sustainable, because it creates like a peak in your collection that is gonna like be very hard to like move past from. It's like it's the same as like projects that like they're like super hyped before TG, and then they TG and everyone is like, okay, bye, on to the next farm. So I think this is like kind of like bad, like giving like rewards in this way. And I think like one thing we wanted to experiment with on Lazy Chain was like like, hey, how can we actually like create like sustainable rewards with like the NFTs? Because actually like the royalties of like NFTs are actually like pretty like decent, and like the revenues are like okay. Like for slots, like I would say like it's pretty good. We've actually like been funding like most of our work and like most of our team like through the royalties. But it's like, hey, okay, we have this IP that like gives us like royalties, but like, hey, what can we do so that like for example like holders can actually like like claw back like some of the value from the protocol? So it's like, for example, on Lazy Chain now, I mean, we have like several ideas for this, which are like like when you put your sloth to sleep, like when your sloth is sleeping, which is like essentially you can think of sleeping as staking, you're probably gonna get like a bunch of like rewards, and like that's pretty much like our idea. It's like I think that's something that is really powerful, because sort of like your NFT holders sort of like become like shareholders of the protocol itself. And I think that gives people like a lot of skin in the game, both to like like promote the project and like whatever you're building, and also like creates like a nice flywheel like long term, because people are gonna be like incentivized to like like make their slots sleep for longer, so like they get like more rewards and stuff like that. So it's like like I think that's like I think like I see like NFTs as like blockchains are just like social coordination, right? I'm like a really big fan of like how people like interact with each other, and I feel like NFTs can make that social interactions, like those social interactions, like even better, because like like if they actually represent ownership over a protocol, I feel like they can be like really powerful in that sense, and I feel like no one has ever really like tried that. And like it's something that like we're looking to do with Lazy Chain, in which like like pretty much like each NFT holder is like it's sort of like being like a shareholder of the protocol, and like I think that's actually like very very like cool, uh, and yeah, like it just I think aligns long term incentives between like the project and the NFT holders like very well, because NFT holders are both incentivized to like like promote you because they were like pretty early uh, on, and like like they're also incentivized to like like create new revenue streams because it's gonna benefit them in the end. So yeah, that's kind of like how I see like the role of Lazy Chain in all of this.
The beautiful, the magnificent. So, Sasha, I'd love to hear your perspective on why certain NFT collections succeed or fail, and sort of how you see mammoths learning from that going forward.
Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting question. We could probably debate this for hours. I mean, I agree a lot with a lot of the things Paco has said. Like, I think we are like just scratching the surface of the design space. There's no one, if anyone tells you like with certainty that they know what the answer is, I would be like default skeptical. I think like these experiments need to run, and we need to see what happens, and it's going to take years, if not decades. I think like there's merit to these different philosophies, right? There's merit to CCO only. There's merit to like what Pudgy's is doing. There's merit to these sort of different paths. What sloths are doing. You can there's also merit to thinking of them as sort of luxury items. There's also merit to thinking of them as like these cultural artifacts. And I think that this for me is like a tension that I find interesting, that I reflect on a lot. I wouldn't say I have any perfect answers, but there's the sort of the speed at which fashion moves is different to the speed at which culture moves. Yet there is, some sort of osmosis between the two, right? There are certain fashion pieces that become timeless, so to speak, right? And like studying that for me is, it's a recent like rabbit hole and obsession, which is fascinating. Like, how do you have these things that end up becoming timeless, right? Is it by design? Is it by accident? Is it a bit of both? I think that there's a lot there. Zooming sort of back out to NFTs, I think I honestly think like the healthiest thing is to not have a huge pump and dump, right? You kind of want these things to go gradually up over time. My Lady's kind of a good example, right? If you look at the chart from a dollar or even a ETH perspective, even better. It does have these ups and downs, but it's kind of stayed within a range of it hasn't gone above, I think, 8 ETH, and um, it hasn't sort of it's kind of been up. The long term trend is up, but it's been oscillating up and down, but not to extreme degrees, right? It hasn't gone to 100 ETH and then back down to 3 and so on. And I think there's an element there where if you want to create something timeless, that and Andy's laughing there, probably the pudgy penguins, but if you want to create something timeless there that's moving at the speed of culture, you kind of want to minimize the extreme ups, I think. But again, this is kind of like as Paco said, no one has the answers, right? This is what makes it so fascinating. This is something we're figuring out in real time. I think it is recoverable if you do have an extreme peak. I don't think it's a death sentence either. Like my personal interest with mammoths is like it's very complementary and very different to what Paco's thinking with sloths, right? There is no IP that one owns with the mammoths. I think for me, it's about creating this this link between the symbol, the mammoth, and crypto and Celestia. But when we get to a point where Celestia and crypto are kind of the indistinguishable, right? A lot of things run on Celestia. People don't necessarily need to know they do, but but they do. And then you have this association between the mammoth and crypto, right? Which sort of every household recognizes, the mammoth overlords and what they stand for, at sort of just a high level, not an intellectual level, right? And I think so for me that pathway is much more looking at artists, like what Philip Colbert is doing in The Lobster. There are other examples, sort of these symbols that have become associated with a specific movement, right? The Lobster associated with surrealism in the artistic sense. Can we have the mammoth be associated with crypto at a high level, and what does that entail? So it's much less about thinking of, about this as returning shareholder value or whatnot. It's really about like the memetics of art. What is art? And for me, there's this great quote by Warhol that I shared recently, which art is whatever you can get away with, right? Like no one really has that answer. So anyway, there's this whole exploration that touches on lots of different dimensions, and I don't think we'll have time to go into all of them.
Man, I could listen to you just philosophize for hours. I feel like very wise mammoth. I yeah, I
I wish.
like your point about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said I wish my wife felt the same way.
um, well,
And
I
man, I'm sure she feels the same way, man.
well, what I was gonna say is, I really liked your point about timeless art, right, and fashion almost. Like there are certain, and it's even like music, all forms of art, right? There are ones that are like culturally relevant for, a specific moment in time, maybe a year or two, and then they just, fade out of fashion, or just you listen back to that song and you're kind of like, I can live without this. But then there's, albums or songs or, pieces of art that stand the test of time, literally like centuries. And it's yeah, it's just interesting. Like what's the difference there? You know what I mean? The songs you don't get tired of listening to. That's a very very interesting point. Um, so Andy is up here. He's the imposter. So we'll only let him up here for a very brief amount of time. We don't want to give the penguins many more platforming than they already have. But Andy, maybe you have a unique perspective on sloths and mammoths, and even just like what makes an NFT collection successful? Because I would say it seems to me like the pudgy penguins are kind of one of the most successful, durable like NFT collections so far in the history of crypto.
Yeah, we got some big penguin energy coming in here. I just want to make sure that Sasha and Paco can handle it. Can I get a verbal confirmation, Paco, that you're okay? Just checking in there.
I think it's gonna be tough, but man, I think I might be all right.
Okay. All right, good.
I'm hanging in there, man.
This sounds like that meme of like, are you sure? And like the wife is like asking him, are you okay with this? Anyway, sorry.
So I think a lot of the NFT stuff isn't actually about money at all or like investing. It's more about like a collector's mindset, which I think is cool. And so I think what Pudgy Penguins has done is actually create a bunch of people that uh, actually liked the art for one, and then two, like have just now been through like 3 years of trauma bonding in good ways and bad ways. And so I think like time plays a big part for the Mamos and Sloths, as well. Like both like very new. So excited to kind of be a part of both communities for the years to come. I also think it's pretty important that like for the community that you guys have these types of like meetings and these types of conversations and place where you hang out, different memes, but also like what helps a lot with Celestia here is that there's actually like a lot of really really smart technical, rigorous things happening that are gonna actually make a really big impact in crypto as a whole. Which I think then like it lends a lot more longevity to mammos and sloths, which I think is super bullish. Um, and so yeah, I mean those are just like some of my general thoughts. I from the outsider's perspective, like outside of the Ethereum collection, mammos and sloths are honestly some of the strongest NFTs for like a given project in terms of the community size and just like the Twitter presence. Like, I mean, I think like Eclipse has their little AS NFT club. I mean, I don't know if you guys can name any others, but I find that mammos and sloths are like have eclipsed a certain level, no pun intended, of community over the last I don't know 6 to 8 months, specifically on sloths and mammals recently, and so I think that we're doing a really strong job, and I think it actually appeals to two different types of people with two different kind of vibes. So yeah, I don't know if you guys did that on purpose in terms of like mammoths and sloths. They're kind of like polar opposite animals, but also like have similarities. Um, but yeah, that's just some like ramblings from a penguin who is going to be converted into a mammoth sloth here soon. Just take some time to cope.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that perspective, Andy. Yeah, everyone always talks about Luca Netz, the founder of Pudgies, as like I don't know one of the goated NFT founders, I guess. So there's definitely a lot to learn from the Pudgy community, and I agree with you. It's interesting how sloths and mammoths are kind of polar opposites, but then there are similarities. I remember being really tripped out when I realized that the movie Ice Age is about a sloth and a mammoth.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and it's just really trippy. It's like, what are the chances of that? I don't think that was intentional at all from the creators of these collections. And then
Yeah.
another weird piece of lore is that actually, as I understand, they were actually giant. I think they were woolly sloths, or I don't know. All I know is that there were these giant sloths back in the day at some like prehistoric period who like carved caves out of rocks and like I don't know, it's just really trippy that there were like these giant like mammoth sized sloths. So there's a lot of like connective tissue, I guess. Um, but yeah, so we're coming up on the last like 10 minutes of the space. Um, I guess I have like one last question, which is like, is there um, is there a degree like sometimes I feel that there is sometimes a tension between the sloths and the mammoths, in that I don't know, like some people were sloths and they switch their PFP to a mammoth, or vice versa, and they occupy sort of as the same community in effect of like Celestia and the modular community, and so is it a a fight for dominance, or is this a happy sort of like friendship and like mutual I guess like positive sum game? I mean that's what I think it is, but it even maybe it's just a fun little like teasing each other, or like a fun competition between mammoths and sloths. But I'm curious what you guys think about the relationship between the collections on that level.
Yeah, if like Sasha, like well, like he always lets me like go first, so I think I'm just gonna take the mic because Sasha was probably just gonna say, "Hey, fuck, it, you're gonna go first," so I'll just go first. But anyway, yeah. So the way I see it is like, hey, uh, let's say like we all had that type of like friend when you're like in high school that it's like sometimes like you're like a little bit shy, but then like your friend comes and like pardon my French, but you start like fucking around and it's like super cool. And it's like that friends that like, like brings the best out of you. Like that's kind of like how I see the interplay between like mammoths and sloths. So like I think it is like competitive to an extent. Because it's like, it's like you're always like competing out things like I know, like, oh yeah, who's gonna go with that girl? Like, are you guys gonna win like the match? Like things like that. But I think it's still like I think that's very like it's like a beautiful type of competition where it's like you're sort of like bringing the best out of each other and growing together in the end. So yeah, also like I mean I think our brands are like very like different in the end. So I don't know. I think it's just really like beautiful to see like this sort of like happening in real time, because I do think that how it stands now, like both collections bring the best out of each other. But there's definitely room for like a little bit of competition for sure.
That's very wholesome. I really like that analogy of like it's a friendly competition that like raises both up. It like kind of like inspires you to try harder and be better. Sasha, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with a lot of what Paco said. I think, like to me, we've met Paco, and I really like him as a person, and I want him to succeed. And I've never felt like personally like there's a competitive element. But it's obviously you are on I guess where you see it most clearly is if PFP changes, right? You can't like you can't get away from that. There is a sort of an attention economy around that. But I think in the long term, if again, the pathways are very different, right? The approach that Paco is taking here and the approach that I think Mammoths are taking, it's sort of very, very different. I think if Celestia is only able to have one, great PFP community, then there are much deeper problems, right? So I think like the pie has so much left to grow. I agree. There's this sort of this cooperation, competition, whatever you want to call it, like pushes us both to greater heights. I think there's also like a really complementary aspect, right, where you have these memes that can tap into both communities, and so I definitely see it as like more win-win. Those are the sort of memes that I see actually spread the most. So I definitely see it as there's definitely is an element of competition you can't escape from because you can only have one PFP, but the sort of the win-wins are so much bigger. Is how I would put it.
Love that. Yeah, I strongly agree. Well, we have a few minutes left. I've found this space to be super valuable and interesting. I'm usually just thinking about the infrastructure and the technology aspect of this, but thinking about the culture and the community, and how the relationship with NFTs has been really eye opening for me. And Yeah, so do you guys have any, I guess, closing thoughts for the listeners before we sign off?
Tasha, you gotta go first.
I mean, not really. I mean, I guess if there are any questions, I don't know if we have time for that. I'm happy to take them.
But no, yeah, I think honestly, like like stay lazy, be big, Mamosloth. If you guys have questions, like, or I think we're very happy to answer. But yeah, like it's just for me, it's a pleasure to be here with like people like Nick and Sasha who like really like get the vision of like Celestia and like also like help shape it. And like you learn a lot from them, and like like I think we need more of that like in the communities. And yeah, it's been like a good ride to like be here with you guys, with all of you, mammoth slots, and like yeah, let's keep making this like a good ride.
Hmm. So anything like just maybe give a 30-second or 1 minute thing of what people can look out for from Sauce and or Mammoths, and how they can get involved.
Sorry, I can take it. Yeah, so honestly, like if you're on slots for mammoths, like honestly, like just reach out, DM me. Like I might take like a while to respond sometimes, but it's like I mean, if you keep like just keep annoying me, and then like I'll for sure respond. And yeah, like I think look, like one of the beauty of Web3 is that our communities are like pretty open. I think on slots, like like we're gonna make like a pretty like big push on content. In a way, like you already like see that happening. We're gonna move more to like video stuff. I mean, we're gonna like of course like launch Lazy Chain, and we got like a couple of like good initiatives like cooking. So yeah, definitely like like stay tuned. I think this is gonna be a big year for us in the sense that big like mammothic, in the sense that we have to like keep building our brand. You know, like we're like a very like junk project. Again, we're not even like 1 year old guys. It's crazy to think that, right? Like I feel like I've been here for like 10 years, but yeah, lots are not even like 1 year old. So this is gonna be like a big year on that.
Wait, is that
You know, we have to,
true?
like,
That's fucking
yes,
crazy. What? Wow. Okay.
yeah, sloth launch in April, man. Yeah,
Oh my
I mean,
God. Wow.
yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah, I know it's crazy, but it's like it's just like I don't know. It's just very nice to see because it tells you a lot about like the potential we have and like the things we can achieve like in only like 1 year. So it's like, hey, I think it's gonna be like all years are gonna be crucial, but I think this one is gonna be crucial in the sense that like we have to keep pushing for the brand and yeah, like try to like keep making this thing great. So I think we have like a really cool stuff coming on the pipeline. So yeah, stay lazy, uh, go big, and yeah, join the ride, guys.
Yeah, just quickly on Mammoth side. I mean, again, like I would encourage everyone to, like really, the beauty of CCA is you can just treat this as like you're a co-owner in this, and I'd love to see like more people step up and just do explore crazy experiments, crazy ideas with Mammoths. I think on my side, I have a couple of ideas which I'm like not quite ready to share yet on how we can like uh, strengthen this meme and broaden the sort of the distribution of it. But again, like that, if you see that, it'll probably happen in the next couple of months. Yeah, just sort of a lot of things in motion, ideas in mind. But the main message is like just please, yeah. The other thing is feel free to I'm trying to follow every mammoth that follows me. So please feel free to reach out. If I haven't followed you back, please ping me. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, you guys heard it here first. Thanks everyone for joining. Bullish on sloths, bullish on mammos, bullish on mamosloths. This is the beginning of the cultural evolution of Celestia and the modular ecosystem. And I cannot believe it's been less than a year. So yeah, imagine where we'll be a year from now. But stay tuned and thanks again. Thanks to our speakers.
Thank you, Nick, for being such an excellent host. It was real pleasure.
Yeah, guys, thanks for hosting. A lot of love to Celestia, and yeah, love you guys. Stay lazy.